before we blast off, say hi in the comments. It may seem small, but it helps the algorithm beam this out to more sci-fi fans. And I seriously love seeing who's part of the crew.
Grand Admiral Zorak stood on the command bridge of the Eternal Dominion, flagship of the Terva hegemony's 7th Fleet. His 6-fingered hand moved gracefully over the dimensional display, expanding the tactical view of Earth's orbital defense grid. The blue planet rotated slowly beneath a scattered network of primitive defense platforms and the remnants of what humans call their last line. "Magnificent, isn't it?" Zorak said, his voice resonating with the distinctive harmonic overtones of the Terva elite caste. 10,000 cycles of hegemony expansion, and still I find beauty in these moments. Science Director Mailer approached, her crystalline exoskeleton catching the light from the bridge illuminators. Unlike most Terva, who evolved with chitinous protection, Mailer's scientist caste had developed transparent carapaces that revealed the complex neural networks beneath a biological adaptation that emerged after millennia of selective breeding. "Beauty, Admiral?" she questioned. "I see only inefficiency. The humans have prolonged this conflict for 7 years. Had you followed my tactical recommendations initially, Earth would already be processing center for our quantum refineries." Zorax turned his tri-lobed eyes toward her. "And that, Director, is why scientists advise while warriors command. War is art, not mere calculation." From the weapons console, Sub-Commander Vex snorted, the gill slits on his neck flaring with derision. Unlike the aristocratic Zorax or the cerebral Mailer, Vex had risen from the warrior caste through sheer brutality. His heavily scarred exoskeleton bore the distinctive striations of 17 major battles. "Art or calculation? The result is the same," Vex growled. "Human resistance ends today. Their orbital platforms are at 23% capacity. Their fleet is reduced to 94 combat-capable vessels. Their ground-based kinetic launchers are depleted of fissionable material." He displayed the data on his console with evident satisfaction. "The Federation Council awaits only your word to begin the victory announcement across the 17 core worlds." Zorax nodded, his facial membranes rippling with pleasure. "Let them wait another hour. I want the humans to fully comprehend their situation." The bridge of the Eternal Dominion stretched nearly half a kilometer, staffed by over 300 Terva from various specialized castes. The vessel itself measured 23 kilometers from bow to stern, a city-sized monument to the hegemony's 12,000-year technological evolution. Its quantum-folded hull contained materials harvested from dying stars, processed through methods developed before humans had discovered basic metallurgy. "Admiral," called the communications officer, "we're receiving unusual transmissions from the human command." "Display," ordered Zorax. The central holographic projector shimmered, resolving into the image of a human male in what appeared to be their military attire. Admiral Jonathan Marshall, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, looked remarkably composed for a man whose civilization stood on the brink of conquest. "Admiral Zorax," Marshall said, his voice steady, "I am authorized by Earth's unified government to discuss terms of surrender." Zorax's membrane ridge elevated slightly, the Terva equivalent of a raised eyebrow. "Terms, Admiral Marshall, I believe you misunderstand the situation. The hegemony does not negotiate terms with pre-quantum civilizations. You will submit to full integration protocols." For those unfamiliar with hegemony history, integration was a centuries-refined process. Planet-wide resource extraction would begin immediately. Population centers would be relocated to maximize efficiency. Human cultural and historical records would be selectively preserved in the Great Archive. Then the species would be assigned its place within the strict caste hierarchy of hegemony society, invariably at the lowest levels. Marshall nodded, showing no emotional response. "We understand integration protocols, Admiral. We simply request 48 hours to prepare our population and disable certain volatile industrial systems safely. We wouldn't want valuable resources damaged during the transition." Science Director Mailer moved closer to the display, her neural networks visibly pulsing beneath her transparent carapace. "Admiral Marshall, our scans indicate your fusion reactors and antimatter containment facilities are already executing controlled shutdown. Curious that you would begin this process before negotiation." Something flickered across Marshall's face, too quickly for the Tervar's alien perception to interpret. "Simply practical preparation, Director," Marshall replied. "We've accepted the inevitability of our situation." "Accepted?" Subcommander Vex interrupted, gill slits flaring with suspicion. 7 years of scorched earth tactics, suicide runs against our supply vessels, and planetary defense grids that cost us 3 entire battle groups to overcome. And now you've accepted defeat. Marshall's expression remained neutral. War is costly, Commander. Eventually all calculations lead to the same conclusion. Zorax studied the human carefully. Something felt discordant. In 12 previous planetary conquests, he had witnessed many responses to impending defeat. Desperate last stands, hysterical pleas, attempted deceptions. This calm acceptance matched none of his experience. 6 hours, Zorax declared finally. You have 6 hours to complete your preparations. Then we begin atmospheric entry and establishment of primary extraction hubs. Understood, Admiral, Marshall said. We appreciate your accommodation. Marshall out. As the transmission ended, Zorax turned to his senior officers. Opinion. Deception, Vex said immediately. They're planning some final desperate attack. Impossible, Mailer countered. Our sensor grid envelops their entire system. We've neutralized 94.6% of their military capability. What could they possibly deploy that we haven't detected? Zorax moved to the tactical display, expanding the view to show the entire Earth-Moon system. The once proud human defense fleet was clustered near their homeworld, barely 100 ships against the hegemony's 3,000. The disparity in technology was even more severe than the numerical disadvantage. Human vessels relied on primitive fusion drives and chemical weapons, while even the smallest hegemony attack craft carried quantum-folded armor and singularity projectors. Perhaps it is simply wisdom, Zorax suggested. Their Admiral Marshall strikes me as intelligent. He recognizes that further resistance only damages the assets we seek to acquire. Humans are not known for wisdom, Vex growled. Their historical records show a species obsessed with individual autonomy, frequently choosing destruction over submission. Mailer's crystalline form shimmered as she processed data streaming through her neural networks. There is another possibility. Psychological profiling suggests humans frequently employ deception when direct confrontation fails. They may be attempting to lull us into complacency. With what purpose? Zorax asked. As you said, we've neutralized their military capability. Their known military capability, Vex corrected. We should initiate the final assault now. Zorax considered the recommendation, then shook his head. No, we will honor the 6-hour window, maintain full sensor sweeps and battle readiness, but hold position. I want this conquest to enter the historical archive as an exemplar of hegemony, efficiency and honor. The invasion of Earth represented more than simply another expansion of hegemony territory. For the Terva, each conquest was conducted according to traditions dating back thousands of years. The ancient protocols established by their forebearer civilization dictated the precise methodology for absorbing new species into the collective. These weren't merely cultural relics, they were the foundation of Tivar supremacy. 12,000 years ago, when the first Tivar achieved quantum consciousness and established contact with the forebearer archive, they received the protocols as a birthright. Each of the 17 castes had their role in conquest predefined by ancient wisdom. As Zorax contemplated the blue planet on his display, he felt the weight of history. He would be the 843rd Grand Admiral to oversee a major planetary integration since the founding. His name would be etched in the living memory crystals of the Great Archive, accessed by future generations through direct neural interface. Admiral, called the sensor officer suddenly, we're detecting unusual energy fluctuations near the lunar dark side. Zorax turned sharply. Classification? Unknown, sir. The pattern doesn't match any known human technology signature. It appears to be spatial distortion of some kind. Mela moved swiftly to the sensor station, her crystalline body catching the light. Show me, she studied the readings, her neural networks visibly accelerating. This is concerning. The mathematics suggest dimension-folding technology, but that's impossible. Humans are at least 3 centuries from such developments. Magnify visual, Zorax ordered. The main display shifted to show the dark side of Earth's moon. At first, nothing seemed amiss. Then almost imperceptibly, the stars behind the lunar surface appeared to... What are we seeing? Vex demanded. Not certain, Myla admitted, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. The energy signature is unlike anything in our database. Zorax felt a sensation he hadn't experienced in centuries, the neural chemical response his species had evolved beyond naming, but which humans would call foreboding. Full alert, he ordered. Bring all weapon systems online. Launch scout drones to investigate. As the bridge erupted into activity, Zorax returned his gaze to the tactical display. The human vessels remained in their defensive formation around Earth, making no aggressive moves. Their behavior didn't match the anomaly they were detecting. Admiral, the communications officer called. We're intercepting fragmented transmissions between human command vessels. They appear to be using a new encryption protocol. Break it, Zorax ordered. Working, sir. We have partial decryption. I'm hearing references to something called Operation Lazarus and repeated mentions of emergence protocols. Science Director Mela's crystalline form pulsed rapidly with neural activity. Lazarus, from human mythology. A dead man returned to life. What does that mean? Vex demanded. I don't know, Mela admitted, but combined with these energy readings, she hesitated. Admiral, I recommend immediate attack. Something is happening that defies our intelligence assessments. Before Zorax could respond, the sensor officer called out again, his voice rising with alarm. Admiral, multiple massive objects emerging from nowhere, dark side of the moon. The tactical display, updated, showing new contacts appearing where empty space had existed moments before. Not small vessels, but enormous structures, each one registering larger than the Eternal Dominion itself. Impossible, Vex whispered. As the Hegemony Bridge crew watched in stunned silence, the first of Earth's hidden dreadnoughts emerged fully from what appeared to be a fold in reality itself, its massive silhouette eclipsing the lunar surface behind it. Zorax stared at the display, his 12,000-year-old civilization's certainties suddenly crumbling before his eyes. What have we awakened? He whispered. 10 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility whose existence was known to fewer than 300 humans, General Thomas Harrington studied the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The enormous holographic projection showed the Tiravar fleet in high Earth orbit, their formation maintained with the mathematical precision that had made the alien hegemony the dominant force in this arm of the galaxy. Until today, Admiral Marshall's transmission was received by the Tiravar flagship as expected, reported Colonel Julia Wright, her fingers dancing across the quantum interface that connected her neural implants directly to Earth's defense network. Grand Admiral Zorax granted the 6-hour window. Psychological analysis suggests 92% confidence he suspects nothing. Harrington nodded, the movement barely perceptible. At 62, the general carried himself with the rigid posture of a career military man, but his eyes revealed something else, a depth of knowledge that came from safeguarding humanity's greatest secret for 3 decades.
And our friends are detecting the first emergence signatures from Lunar Dark? He asked.
Yes, sir, confirmed Major David Taylor from the Dimensional Operations Console. Unlike the other officers in their standard military uniforms, Taylor wore the distinctive silver-gray bodysuit of the Dimensional Corps, its surface embedded with microscopic reality-anchoring particles that protected human tissue during phase transitions. The Phantom Fleet is beginning controlled emergence. Dreadnought Prometheus is executing the first stage fold collapse exactly as planned. Around them, the Strategic Command Center hummed with activity. Unlike the chaotic command centers depicted in historical films, this facility operated with hushed efficiency. Most communication occurred through neural interfaces. The officers' enhanced minds linked directly to their systems. Only critical information requiring group awareness was spoken aloud. The chamber itself was a technological marvel that the Tiravar would have thought impossible for humans to create. Its walls were composed of dimension-stabilized neutronium, harvested from the core of a collapsed star and processed through methods developed by Earth scientists 300 years earlier. The facility existed partially phase-shifted from normal space-time, a precaution against detection that had proven essential when the hegemony arrived 7 years ago. What about civilian evac status? Harrington asked, turning to the population security officer. 97% of critical personnel are secured in subterranean shelters, she replied. The remaining 3% are dimensional research teams completing final stabilization of the Pacific Rim facilities. Harrington allowed himself a small smile. After 2 centuries of preparation, we're still rushing at the last minute. The other officers chuckled softly, the momentary levity a release of tension before what was to come. For over 200 years, since humanity's first accidental contact with the dimensional plane they now called the Void, Earth had been preparing for this moment. The discovery had been catastrophic at first. A small research team in Antarctica experimenting with quantum field manipulation had torn a hole in reality itself. What came through that tear changed human history forever. 3 researchers died instantly, their minds unable to process what they witnessed. The 4th, Dr. Elizabeth Keyes, survived long enough to seal the breach and transmit a warning that altered humanity's trajectory. The void entities they glimpsed existed beyond conventional physics, perceiving our universe as we might perceive a 2-dimensional drawing, and they were hungry. Dr. Keyes's final message became the foundation of the Phoenix Protocol, humanity's 2-century project to prepare Earth for the dual threats they now faced. The void entities that tested the dimensional boundaries of our reality and the advanced alien civilizations that might discover Earth before humans were ready to reveal their true capabilities. The Taravar hegemony had arrived 50 years ahead of the most pessimistic projections. "Sir," Colonel Wright interrupted Harrington's thoughts, "we're receiving the emergence confirmation from Admiral Walker. The Phantom Fleet is ready." Harrington straightened. "Display Phantom Fleet status." The holographic projection shifted, showing the dark side of the moon where reality itself appeared to be unfolding. The process was visually subtle, space itself seeming to ripple as though viewed through heat waves, but the energy readings displayed alongside were astronomical. "Begin full emergent sequence," Harrington ordered. "Initiate Operation Lazarus." Major Taylor activated his command protocols, his neural implants glowing faintly beneath his skin as they channeled the enormous computational requirements for dimensional fold collapse. Transmitting emergence codes now. Across the quantum-secured communication network, the order propagated to the 12 massive vessels that had existed in dimensional isolation for decades. These weren't merely ships, they were humanity's masterpieces. Each dreadnought represented the pinnacle of human ingenuity, constructed in secret, while Earth presented a carefully crafted facade of technological limitation to the galaxy. The first to emerge was the EDF Prometheus, 8 kilometers of advanced alloys and dimensional technologies, wrapped around a core of controlled singularity matter. Its hull was composed of material that absorbed rather than reflected light, making it appear as an impossibly dark silhouette against the stars. Weapon systems that could reconfigure the fabric of space-time itself, nestled alongside phase-shifted hangar bays housing thousands of autonomous fighter craft. "Tiravar fleet is responding," reported the tactical officer. "They've gone to full alert status and are activating weapons systems." "As expected," Harrington nodded. "Continue emergence sequence. Maintain Phase 2 communication protocols." The second dreadnought began its transition to normal space, the EDF Hyperion, distinctive with its triple-hull configuration designed for deep void operations. As it fully materialized, its dimensional wake disrupted the Terva's sensor grid, creating cascading failures across their detection network. "Sir, we're picking up increased communication from the Tervar command ships," Wright reported. "They're trying to break our encryption." "Let them get fragments," Harrington ordered. "Specifically, the Lazarus references." Admiral Walker suggested that would be particularly effective against their cultural psychology. On the tactical display, the Taravar fleet was visibly responding, their formations shifting from standard deployment to defensive configurations. Several smaller vessels broke formation, accelerating toward the lunar emergence point. "Scouts approaching Prometheus," reported the tactical officer. "Admiral Walker is requesting permission to initiate first contact protocols." Harrington took a deep breath. This moment had been theoretical for generations of Earth's military planners, the moment when humanity would finally reveal its true face to the galaxy. The careful deception that had been maintained for centuries was about to end. "Permission granted," he said. "Execute Phase 3. As the words left his mouth, the remaining 10 dreadnoughts began their synchronized emergence. Unlike the Tiravar ships, with their sleek crystalline aesthetics, Earth's vessels embraced a brutalist philosophy. Their angular, faceted surfaces were designed not for beauty but for dimensional stability and weapons platform optimization. Each dreadnought was named for mythological figures associated with knowledge and fire: Prometheus, Hyperion, Athena, Hephaestus, Apollo, Brigid, Agnio, Ogun, Shirtkoti, Logi, Huhuetioti, and Vulcan. Together they formed humanity's Prometheus fleet, though the Turva would come to know them by another name, the Harbingers. "Emergence complete," Major Taylor announced. "All 12 dreadnoughts have successfully transitioned to normal space-time, dimensional stability at 99.7%. The holographic display now showed the full majesty of humanity's hidden fleet. Each vessel dwarfed the Turva flagship, making the once intimidating alien armada look like toys in comparison. From the dreadnought's weapon ports, strange energies pulsed, not the familiar glow of plasma weapons or laser arrays, but rippling distortions in reality itself. "The Turva are scanning us," Wright reported. "Their sensor systems are attempting to classify our technology." Harrington allowed himself a thin smile. "They won't find anything familiar. Proceed with Phase 4. Let's show them what humanity has been hiding." On his command, each dreadnought activated its primary defensive systems. Around the massive vessels, reality itself seemed to bend as phase shields came online. Technology developed through reverse engineering of void entity incursions. Unlike conventional energy shields, these defensive systems partially shifted the protected object into an adjacent dimension, making them effectively invulnerable to conventional weapons. "Turva flagship is hailing the Prometheus," Wright announced. "Put it through," Harrington ordered. The central holographic display shifted to show Admiral Jessica Walker on the bridge of the Prometheus. Unlike the stark utilitarian design of the Strategic Command Center, the Dreadnought's bridge was vast and imposing, designed specifically to create psychological impact during first contact scenarios. Walker stood at the center of the bridge, her white admiral's uniform contrasting with the dark, angular architecture surrounding her. At 58, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had trained her entire life for this moment. "Grand Admiral Zorax," Walker addressed the Turva commander, though the connection showed only her side of the conversation. "This is Admiral Jessica Walker of the Earth Defense Force Dreadnought Division. Your fleet is now surrounded. Power down your weapon systems immediately." Harrington watched as Walker delivered the words that would change galactic history. He couldn't hear Zorax's response, but he could imagine the alien's shock. The careful deception was over. The real test was about to begin. "Sir," Colonel Wright said quietly, turning from her console, "the Turva flagship is powering up its main singularity cannon. They appear to be preparing to fire on the Prometheus." Harrington nodded, unsurprised. And so it begins. On the tactical display, he watched as the Eternal Dominion oriented its primary weapon toward the human dreadnought. Energy readings spiked as the Turva vessel channeled power to what they believed was their ultimate weapon, a device capable of creating a localized singularity that could tear apart conventional matter. "Admiral Walker is requesting permission to execute demonstration protocol," Wright reported. "Granted," Harrington said. "Let's show them exactly what they're dealing with." On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Walker gave the order. The Dreadnought's reality distortion array activated, focusing on a small uninhabited asteroid floating at the edge of the lunar orbit. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, without explosion or visible energy transfer, the asteroid simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, but removed from this plane of reality. The message was clear. Conventional physics no longer applied. As the remaining 11 dreadnoughts moved into strategic positions surrounding the Turva fleet, the truth that humanity had hidden for centuries was finally revealed. Earth wasn't merely another world to be conquered by the ancient hegemony, it was something else entirely. A fortress at the edge of reality, guarding against horrors the Turva couldn't begin to comprehend. And now, the Guardians had shown themselves. Grand Admiral Zorax stood frozen on the command bridge of the Eternal Dominion, his tri-lobed eyes fixed on the impossible sight before him. Where once the Turva fleet had held absolute dominance, now 12 colossal human vessels surrounded them, each one dwarfing his flagship with dimensions that defied conventional engineering. "Impossible," he whispered, a word that had never before passed his mandibles in his 300-year military career. Science Director Mailer's crystalline form pulsed with rapid neural activity, her transparent carapace revealing the chaotic patterns beneath. "Admiral, these vessels, they're utilizing dimensional phase technology at least level 9 on the forebearer scale. Our sensors can't even classify most of their systems. I don't care what technology they're using. Sub-Commander Vex snarled, his gill slits flaring with aggression. No species conceals this level of advancement without hostile intent. We must strike first. Before Zorax could respond, the weapons officer called out, "Singularity cannon at full charge, Admiral." Targeting solution locked on the lead human vessel. Zorax hesitated, only briefly. 12,000 years of hegemony history had taught one consistent lesson. Decisive action prevailed. Fire. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as its primary weapon discharged. A concentrated beam of exotic particles designed to collapse ordinary matter into a microscopic black hole. It was technology that had rendered entire civilizations extinct, capable of tearing apart any known material in the galaxy. The beam struck the human dreadnought Prometheus direct and disappeared. There was no explosion, no energy dispersion, not even a ripple across the massive vessel's dark hull. The singularity beam simply ceased to exist upon contact, as though it had never been fired. "What happened?" Zorax demanded. "Unknown, Admiral," Mela replied, her voice uncharacteristically shaken. The weapon discharged correctly, but the energy signature simply vanished upon reaching the human vessel's defensive perimeter. The communications system activated without their input. Admiral Walker's face appeared on the main display, her expression stern but not triumphant. "That was unwise, Grand Admiral Zorax," she said. "Allow me to demonstrate why." Without visible weapon discharge, one of the Turvar's heavy cruisers, the Pride of Xingthu, a vessel that had survived 3 major campaigns, simply disappeared from space. Not destroyed in a conventional sense, but removed as though it had been extracted from reality itself. Panic erupted across the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. "Officer, caste that had been genetically engineered for centuries to maintain composure now broke protocol, shouting contradictory readings and recommendations." "Silence!" Zorax commanded, his harmonic voice cutting through the chaos. When order was restored, he addressed the human admiral. "What did you do to my ship?" "Phase shifted it temporarily into an adjacent dimensional plane," Walker replied matter-of-factly. "Your crew is unharmed but suspended in a state outside conventional space-time. We can return them or not, at our discretion." Zorax felt something he had never experienced, the complete loss of tactical advantage. In 12,000 years of expansion, the hegemony had encountered countless species, some with impressive technologies, but none that rendered their weapons completely ineffective. "The rest of your fleet has a choice," Walker continued. "Power down your weapon systems immediately, or we will be forced to neutralize them. You have 30 seconds to comply." Zorax turned to his senior officers. Vex was still advocating resistance, but even he must recognize the futility. Mela's crystalline form had dimmed, her neural networks slowing as she processed the implications of what they were witnessing. "Stand down all weapons," Zorax ordered finally. "Transmit the command to all vessels." As the Tirvar fleet complied, the human dreadnoughts maintained their encirclement, their massive forms casting shadows across the smaller alien ships. The power differential was now painfully apparent. The hegemony's feared armada rendered insignificant by these 12 vessels that had emerged from nowhere. "A wise decision," Admiral Walker acknowledged. "Grand Admiral Zorax, I extend an invitation to you and your senior officers to board the Prometheus for diplomatic discussion. We have much to explain." Zorax considered refusing, but curiosity overrode caution. Whatever these humans truly were, understanding their capabilities might be the hegemony's only path forward. "I accept," he said. 2 hours later, Zorax, Mela, and Vex stood in what the humans called an observation deck aboard the Prometheus. Unlike the utilitarian designs Zorax had expected based on their knowledge of human engineering, the chamber was vast and imposing. One wall consisted entirely of a transparent material that seemed to phase between solid and immaterial states, offering a view not of space but of something else. Admiral Walker entered, accompanied by an older human male who was introduced as General Thomas Harrington. The humans wore no protective gear despite sharing enclosed space with alien biology, either foolishly confident or possessing medical technology that rendered such concerns obsolete. "Grand Admiral," Walker began, "what you see before you is the culmination of over 2 centuries of human technological development. Development we have deliberately concealed from the galaxy at large." "Why?" Mela asked, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding diplomatic protocol. "What purpose does such deception serve?" General Harrington stepped forward. Protection, Director Mailer. Not just of ourselves, but potentially of all sentient life in this galaxy. He gestured toward the transparent wall. What you're about to see is the real reason Earth has remained isolated, why we've maintained the facade of limited technological capability, and why we've devoted vast resources to dimensional physics rather than conventional expansion. The wall's transparency intensified, and the view shifted to show what appeared to be empty space at first. Then Zorax noticed the anomalies, rippling distortions in the fabric of reality itself, pulsing with colors that his tri-lobed eyes could barely process. "What am I seeing?" he asked. "We call it the Void," Walker explained. "A dimensional plane adjacent to our reality, separated by a barrier that grows increasingly thin in certain regions of space. Earth, unfortunately, exists near one such region," Harrington continued. 214 years ago, a human research team accidentally breached this barrier while experimenting with quantum field manipulation. What came through that breach changed human history forever. The view shifted again, focusing on one of the distortions. As they watched, the ripple expanded, forming what appeared to be a tear in space itself. Through this tear, something moved, a presence more than a physical entity, with geometries that seemed to fold in on themselves in impossible ways. Even through the protective shielding of the observation deck, Zorax felt an instinctive revulsion, a primal fear response that bypassed 12,000 years of Tirvar evolutionary refinement. "What is that?" he whispered. "We don't entirely know," Walker admitted. "Our best scientists describe them as extra-dimensional entities that perceive our universe as we might perceive a two-dimensional drawing. They exist beyond conventional physics, beyond conventional comprehension. And they're hungry," Harrington added grimly. "Their interaction with our dimension manifests as energy absorption, specifically the energy patterns of organized consciousness, sentient life." The implications struck Zorax with physical force. "You're saying these entities feed on sentient beings? Not just their bodies," Walker clarified. "Their very consciousness, what some might call souls, though we prefer more scientific terminology. These entities consume the organized information patterns that comprise advanced neural systems. Mailer's crystalline form pulsed with intense neural activity. This violates numerous cosmic principles. Such entities shouldn't be able to interact with our dimension at all. And yet they do," Harrington said. "For over 2 centuries, humanity has been fighting a secret war against these incursions. Every breakthrough in our technology, every scientific advancement, has been directed toward one goal: developing weapons and defenses against a threat that exists beyond conventional reality." The display shifted again, showing one of the human dreadnoughts, engaging what appeared to be a massive tear in space. The vessel fired no visible weapon, but reality itself seemed to restabilize around the breach, forcing it closed. "The dimensional phase technology you witnessed today wasn't developed for warfare against other species," Walker explained. "It was developed to combat entities that exist between dimensions. Our weapons don't destroy in the conventional sense, they restructure reality to repel void incursions." Zorax struggled to process what he was hearing. The Forebearer archives, the foundation of Tirvar civilization, contained no reference to such entities or threats. "If what you're saying is true," he said slowly, "why conceal this from the galaxy? Why not seek allies against such a threat?" A shadow passed over Walker's face. "We tried, Grand Admiral. 400 years ago, long before the Void incursions began, we encountered another advanced species, the Arcturians. When they saw our early dimensional technology, they assumed we were developing weapons of conquest. They attacked, without provocation, forcing us to defend ourselves." "The Arcturians are extinct," Vex interjected. "Their civilization collapsed mysteriously almost 4 centuries ago." "Not extinct," Harrington corrected. "Defeated. We had no choice. After that disaster, humanity decided isolation was safer. We would develop our technology in secret, present a limited facade to any species we encountered, and protect the galaxy from the shadows." Zorax felt the foundations of his understanding crumbling. The Tirvar had always believed themselves the guardians of galactic order, their 12,000-year expansion justified as bringing stability and advancement to primitive species. Now he faced the possibility that humans, creatures the hegemony had dismissed as barely worth assimilating, had been fighting a war beyond comprehension while his civilization remained ignorant of the threat. "Why reveal this now?" he asked. "You could have destroyed our fleet, maintained your secret." Admiral Walker's expression softened slightly. "Because we need allies, Grand Admiral. The Void incursions are increasing in frequency and strength. Our scientists predict a major offensive within the next decade, one that will require every resource we can muster. The Terva hegemony, with its 17 core worlds and hundreds of colonies, represents the largest unified civilization in our arm of the galaxy." Harrington added, "You have resources, shipyards, and populations that could be mobilized for defense." "You expect us to believe this?" Vex demanded, his warrior caste instincts still dominant despite what he'd witnessed. "To accept that humans have been secretly protecting the galaxy while we conquered worlds?" In answer, Walker activated a control panel. A holographic display formed in the center of the chamber, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red markers pulsed at various points along the outer spiral arm. "These are active breach points where void entities are currently attempting to enter our dimension," she explained. "Our dreadnoughts and defensive platforms are holding them back, but the incursions are growing stronger. While we've been fighting you, we've had to divert resources from that defense." Zorax studied the map, a cold realization settling into his consciousness. Several of the red markers coincided with regions where hegemony expansion had encountered unexplained difficulties, colony worlds where citizens reported nightmares and psychiatric disturbances before communications mysteriously ceased. "The lost colonies," he murmured. "Antares Prime, Vixoria, New Tier. We assumed local phenomena or undiscovered pathogens." "Void incursions," Walker confirmed grimly. "We couldn't reach them in time." The weight of this revelation struck Zorax with physical force. For all the hegemony's power, all their 12,000 years of advancement, they had been blind to a threat that might render their entire civilization extinct. "What do you propose?" he asked finally. "An alliance," Harrington said simply. "Return to the hegemony with the truth about Earth and the Void threat. Help us prepare the galaxy for what's coming." "The Hegemony Council will find this difficult to accept," Zorax said. "We have positioned ourselves as the dominant power in the galaxy for millennia. To learn that we've been unknowingly protected by a species we attempted to conquer. Pride is a luxury none of us can afford anymore," Admiral Walker said quietly. "The Void cares nothing for our political structures or historical grievances. It will consume us all equally if it breaks through." Science Director Mela, who had been studying the Void display with intense concentration, turned to face the others. "These entities? Have you considered that they might be the reason the forebearer civilization disappeared? Our historical records indicate they vanished suddenly at the height of their advancement, leaving only their knowledge archives behind." Walker and Harrington exchanged glances. "We've considered that possibility," the general admitted. "The timing would align with theoretical models of void expansion cycles." The implications of this statement hung heavy in the observation deck. If the forebearers, the near-mythical progenitors of Tirva civilization, had fallen to these entities, what hope did any of them have? Zorax moved closer to the transparent barrier, studying the rippling distortions beyond. Something massive pressed against the dimensional boundary, a presence more than a physical entity, with geometries that seemed to fold impossibly upon themselves. The barrier fluctuated but held. "That," General Harrington said softly, "is a small one." Zorax returned to face the humans, his decision made. "I will take your message to the Hegemony Council. I cannot guarantee they will believe it or that they will agree to an alliance, but I will do everything in my power to convince them." Admiral Walker nodded. "That is all we ask. In the meantime, we've prepared detailed information about the Void entities for you to study during your journey home. Your surviving ships have been repaired and resupplied, and as a gesture of good faith, we will assign 2 of our dreadnoughts to escort you back to Hegemony space." As Zorax prepared to return to his vessel, he paused at the observation deck entrance. "Admiral Walker, one question remains. How has humanity borne this burden alone for so long? The psychological toll of facing such entities." Walker's expression revealed a weariness that transcended physical exhaustion. "We've had no choice, Admiral. Every human born for the past 2 centuries has known that our primary purpose is to stand guard at the edge of reality. We are born into this war." As Zorax departed the Prometheus, He gazed back at Earth, the blue planet he had come to conquer, now revealed as something else entirely, a fortress at the boundary of existence, manned by a species whose determination and ingenuity had been vastly underestimated. The galaxy he would return to was not the one he had left. The certainties of 12,000 years had been upended in a day, replaced by a terrifying truth and an uncertain future. Yet strangely, Zorax felt something he had not experienced in centuries, purpose beyond conquest, beyond expansion. If humanity could stand against the void for 2 centuries alone, what might be accomplished through alliance? Perhaps this was the true test the forebearers had prepared the hegemony for all along, not domination of other species but unification against a threat beyond comprehension. As the dimensional drives of the human dreadnoughts activated, creating controlled breaches in reality that would carry them back hegemony space, Zorax watched the barrier between dimensions fluctuate once more. Beyond it, the nameless entities continued their relentless pressure against the fabric of existence. The real war was just beginning.